These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. One meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. Wild Alaskan Company, delicious, sustainably sourced seafood delivered right to your door. More information at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. And Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics. More info at mackweldon.com/Tom.
We say fight back!
Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders, these are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, you know, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Dulaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You could say, you know, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Milley this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, you know, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. Most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but you know, maybe 100, maybe 2, who knows? And seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky. But this one is just, it's my masterpiece, and you'll get an autographed copy. Or you can get the the Free Speech TV T-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers, the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartman, and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with it, and we're having a fine time doing it. Look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome to the program today. We've got a lot coming up. In our third hour, Professor Michael Mann will be with us. We're going to talk about the Earth's tipping points with regard to climate change. Are we closer than we think? This is, say, a little concerning. We've got a crazy alert today. Why did Paul Ryan do psychological research on Donald Trump? Seriously. And the California election experience. We'll get into that in our second hour. How long before the GOP starts talking again about compassionate conservatism? And I also want to get into the real crime that General Milley exposed and kind of laid bare. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, Jennifer Stefano is on the line with us, the Republican strategist, vice president with the Commonwealth Foundation, fellow with the Independent Women's Forum. CommonwealthFoundation.org or IWF.org are the websites. Jennifer Stefano, spelled just the way it sounds, Stefano, is her Twitter handle. Jennifer, welcome back to the program. Denmark opened last Friday. They said, okay, this is it. No more masks, no more vaccine passports, which they had put into place back in March. You had to have a vaccine even to get on a bus in Denmark. And now, and they had a concert on Saturday, 50,000 people. You know, great fun. In the entire country, there are 13 people still on respirators, kind of lingering. And, you know, it's over because pretty much everybody who's over 12 years old is vaccinated. What's wrong with that?
Well, as someone who is vaccinated and vaccinated my child, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Then why am I getting a press release from you about the how, you know, this, well, employers are struggling to hire workers and government agents actions over the past year haven't been helping. You're anti-vaccine mandate, essentially. You're opposed to this. Do I have that correct? Do I understand this correctly?
Yeah, so I like that question. So first, I'm always wondering why so many progressives point to all white countries as the model of excellence on everything. Denmark is 100% white. There are no minorities anywhere in positions of power, and there's no history where minorities might be suspicious of government mandates. Like, say, here in the United States, I mean, you only have 30% of the black population inoculated from COVID at the moment, and certainly given the history of the government and the black population, you might start to understand the questioning and the skepticism around that. So I think we're a nation high on civil liberties. We're a nation that has sometimes a tenuous and questionable relationship where government did things, particularly to minorities, that made people suspicious. And we need to recognize that if we want to be successful in vaccinating people, the manner in which it is done, whether it's and again, to me, the question is not, should it be done? Is it at the federal level? Or should there be more local control that allows people to feel that they are part of the process? And to me, on behalf of black Americans or other Americans of any color or persuasion that have questions around the science and the new data coming out, local control is better. And, I think the president's using the Standard Procedure Act, and even the Democrats are wondering if that's going to hold up in courts, and not just
it's nice to hear you're starting to get repetitive here. It's nice to hear a Republican, suddenly concerned about minorities, about African Americans and other minorities in the United States. But my question is, and very straightforward, we've got a disease that has killed 650,000 Americans, or a little less than that, but in that, over 600,000 Americans. We've got a disease that is starting to hurt the economy. There is I think, a relatively credible conspiracy theory out there, which suggests that the only reason Republicans are trying to discourage Americans from getting vaccinated or are fighting the efforts of, companies like United Airlines that are saying you get vaccinated or don't come to work, period. That the only reason Republicans are doing this is because you are hoping that if you can keep this death-dealing pandemic going in the United States. We have more cases in this country than any other country in the world, yet we're only 4% of the world's population. China, or India rather, has 4 times our population. They have fewer cases than we do because they're masking and things. If you guys I believe that Republicans think that if you can keep this thing going, if you can keep people dying, if you can keep hospitals in crisis, it'll shut down the economy, and that will hurt the Democrats in the election in 2022 and 2024, and it'll hurt the Biden administration. And that just seems crass to me. I'm not buying this, we're worried about the black people stuff, Jennifer. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you don't know my race or my ethnic makeup, and
I frankly don't care. It's not my point. My point is that we have people who are dying.
My point is I'm here as an American telling you that if you want real buy-in, it would absolutely, I think it's crass to suggest that anyone of any political persuasion would want to hurt the United States just to screw over the other side.
Then why are you guys doing it?
Well, you will recall that it was President Trump who was in power when the entire nation was shut down for a year.
Until April 7th. Not for a year. No, on April 7th.
Let's be really clear.
No, let's be very clear about this, Jennifer. And that's a great point. Because Trump did the right thing in February. In the first week of March. He did the right thing. And then on April 7th came this headline: black people are dying at a higher rate than whites of COVID. It was the New York Times, the Washington Post. It was all over the television networks. The next day, Rush Limbaugh came out and said, oh, my God, look at this. It doesn't affect white people this bad. That night, Sean Hannity came out and said, I guess it was Tucker Carlson came out and said, this isn't that big a deal. You had Britt Hume the day after saying, looks like this isn't such a big deal. And all of us, Trump that week canceled the program to send 5 masks to every American. And from the week after April 7th going forward for the rest of the year, Trump was desperately trying to get people back into the economy. And that's why we have the worst death rate in the world.
President Trump was the ultimate pro-vaxxer. This was a guy that not only would have distributed and forced everyone to get a vaccine, he probably would have made us get a tattoo saying, Trump got me this vaccine. Let's be real.
He lied for 2 months about the fact that he and his family were vaccinated.
He was absolutely, from day one.
He was vaccinated in January, and he didn't acknowledge it until March.
So what? Why do you care?
Well, you were just telling me that he's a big advocate of vaccines. Why did he hide it?
Well, that's not my problem. He wasn't president then. He's a private citizen.
But you brought it up.
He doesn't. I brought it up because what I'm saying to you is when Donald Trump was president, from day one, he initiated Operation Warp Speed and said the United States is going to fast track a vaccine to the market and everybody's going to get vaccinated. And God bless him. You can hate him for all that you hate him for, but he did it.
Yeah, God bless him for that. And that helped Moderna. Pfizer didn't take a penny of Operation Warp Speed, by the way. But why didn't he then, when Joe Biden came into the White House, why was there no plan to distribute them? And why was there only 100 million doses of vaccine purchased when, you know, we're a country of 340 million people? We need at least 500-600 doses of vaccine.
Well, since the United States Congress controls the purse string, you should ask the Democrats who were in charge of the Congress.
No, Trump had the authority to do this. That's why he was able to buy 100 million doses.
You want to hang this. President Trump got the vaccine, okay? So he was the ultimate. I'm telling you, we'd all have tattoos saying Trump maybe got this vaccine. He would have probably, God only knows how he would have forced it. My argument is I am not so cynical as to believe that anyone created COVID to destroy the Trump presidency back in 2020 and shut down the economy, nor do I think anyone is whooping it up and happy to see harm come to hurt Joe Biden.
Then why do Republicans, why is, for example, you know, down in Florida or in Texas, I mean, you got a half a dozen states now where Republican governors and Republican legislatures have essentially made it illegal for private businesses. I mean, talk about the ultimate of interference in the so-called free market. Private businesses to say, you know, I'm not going to serve you if you're not vaccinated.
You know, I would argue this is because we stopped teaching civics in school, and everybody needs a little life lesson on it. Like in the end, it is better to have local control. You know, federalism matters. That's my opinion. We're a federalist. Like federalism.
You're changing the subject.
Run the country. And there are things better delegated to the federal government, and the states do have the right under the Constitution to police.
So why are they doing that? Why is Ron DeSantis doing something that is just nakedly, openly, obviously to everybody in the world, killing more Floridians? Why?
So again, Florida's
that's
Florida's
local control.
Do not bear that out.
Why is Ron DeSantis saying that cities and counties in Florida can't have mask or vaccine mandates?
So Ron DeSantis is simply saying that the way they're going to get people healthy is to do what they've been intending to do, and you'll get more people by agreeing to come to this voluntarily than strong-arming it. And I think if you've seen the failure of trying to strong-arm people into getting the vaccine, if it worked.
You mean like Denmark?
If an all-white country, again,
what does that have to do with it?
Love, pointing to like almost 100% white countries as the model of excellence.
What does that have to do with anything?
It has everything to do with it. It's a teeny tiny, small.
I mean, you can try to racialize this argument, Jennifer, but you know, the fact of the matter is that Denmark put into place a vaccine passport in March. You couldn't do anything economic. You couldn't even get on a bus without a vaccine passport. Now, you know, 90%, over 90% of their adult population is vaccinated, and they have no more COVID for all practical purposes. Certainly no COVID crisis. And
again, Tom,
and it's not happening here, and it's not happening here with the enthusiastic pushing of the GOP. Why?
I would argue that because, Tom, guys like you and the Democrats continue to argue there can't be anything like voter ID, and that it would somehow disenfranchise black people. And now you're going to make everybody carry a passport.
Voter
and
ID?
You're going to push everybody to get a vaccine and show a card, but you won't do it for voting. I think maybe the hypocrisy that continues to come out of leftism and leftist ideology is part of the reason people don't buy in.
So the reason
it's only helpful. Let me finish this.
Okay. All right. You have 30 seconds here.
Yeah, there is a huge hypocrisy and a double standard that always displays in leftist ideology, and it ends up making people less trustful, less likely to be safe.
So these Republicans who are not getting vaccinated, who are dying in droves, are doing it because of me.
So I just want to say the left was equally as anti-vax prior to COVID. They were radical about it. 2014 in the Atlantic, the counties around LA super blue, super Democratic, had lower vaccination rates than Sudan.
There was no COVID then.
It doesn't matter. You're not suddenly pro-vax because of COVID. These people let whooping cough come back. It's sad. I think I'm a vaccinated person. I'd like to see what you'd like to see, Tom.
Everybody vaccinated?
Yeah, I would like to see that.
We'll agree on that. Jennifer Stefano, Vice President of the Commonwealth Foundation, fellow with the Independent Women's Forum, IWF, CommonwealthFoundation.org. Jennifer Stefano on Twitter. Jennifer, thank you for dropping by today.
Thank you, Tom. Always lovely.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls. I got to tell you about General Milley, my thoughts on General Milley, too, right after this break. And welcome back. Jerry in San Francisco. Hey, Jerry, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm just reveling in the fact that we in California made fools out of people like Jennifer and the rest of her Republicans on Tuesday. But I want to focus more on some states that are way different than the results that took place in California on Tuesday. Yesterday, Pennsylvania put a subpoena out for 7 million files on voters.
Oh, yeah.
That lists their driver's licenses, partial Social Security, and all the communications between state and county officials. Now, Biden won by 81,000 votes in Pennsylvania. And if the courts rule in favor of this grab here, that state, just joining like Arizona, Georgia, and so forth, is going to be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And I really think that, you take a look at Arizona, for example, the quote-unquote audit took voting machines. Did they even return them yet, Tom? I don't know if they did.
The county can't take them back. Well, I mean, maybe they can take them back and dispose of them, but the voting machines have been so compromised in Maricopa County, Arizona, that the county has to spend millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars to replace absolutely everything. And it's all, by the way, in violation of federal law, and I'm still scratching my head as to why Merrick Garland hasn't done anything about it.
And
he sent them a nasty letter.
When it goes through the courts, it takes so long, and I'm not even sure, it could bump right up to the 2024 elections. And then, of course, if it goes to the ultimate ruling group, the Supreme Court, I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to look at any kind of challenge to this as in favor of the plaintiffs. And then on ThomHartmann.com, where you pointed out that 80,000 people have been legally thrown off, or 108,000 people have been legally thrown off the voting rolls in Wisconsin. These are surgical strikes, and I think that you and Greg Palast have done a great job at focusing in on, like, you could get a whole bunch of people, new voters, and voting in places like California, and it won't make a damn difference when you have these states, and Michigan is going through the same thing.
Michigan has a Democratic Secretary of State, so they're not doing racially or politically targeted purges. But Texas is. No. Georgia is. Well, I mean, these are states that very well could be purple states right now if they just kept their voting rolls clean.
And Greg Palast was saying too, though, that focus is in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is a big African American community. I'd love to hear you do a deeper dive on this, next week or whatever, because it's a very, very dangerous thing that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I can't speak to the Milwaukee or to the Wisconsin experience. I thought that Wisconsin had a Democratic Secretary of State. Maybe I'm wrong. Wisconsin has a Democratic governor. So, I would be surprised if they were doing voter purges specifically to try to influence the outcome of the elections. But we saw this done clearly in Florida in 2000 by Jeb Bush, throwing 90,000 African Americans off the voting rolls. I mean, it was just a naked attempt. That whole program that Chris Kobach was running, across some 20 states was just just that. Jerry, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Hey, we have a couple of special things over at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com. Of course, at HartmannReport.com, every single day, well, 6 days a week, Sunday accepted, I write a rant about an issue of the day that I think is important. Louise and I work on these together. We get them out typically around 6 in the morning Pacific time. And you'll find that at HartmannReport.com. It's free. You can sign up for it. There's no ads, whatever. But also over at ThomHartmann.com, we have a video every week for the supporters of our program. And the one this week is about how Wisconsin is trying to remove, in fact, they just got permission from their Supreme Court to remove 188,000 people from the voting rolls because they haven't voted in 4 years. This highlights the importance of getting to know who is your state representative, who is your state senator, and communicating with them regularly. It's all over at HartmannReport.com and ThomHartmann.com. So, welcome back. All right, yesterday, this whole Bob Woodward's book has dropped, and Robert Costa, they wrote it together. And in this book, they are citing the apparent fact that General Mark Milley on 2 different occasions basically stepped in to stop, either prevent Donald Trump from starting a war, or actually reached out to his contemporary in China. I talked about this a little bit on the air a couple days ago, yesterday, the day before, I believe it was the day before, about how we were not going to strike China, that he was going to prevent Donald Trump from trying to use an international incident to maintain his own power. And he did this because he was hearing chatter that China was freaked out and they were thinking maybe they should do a preemptive strike or something like that. And he was like, let's just cool this all down. Now, in doing that, the Joint Chiefs, the Constitution doesn't have any mention of the Joint Chiefs. The Joint Chiefs is not in the command structure for declaring war and or engaging in war, and it's not covered by the authorization to use military force. So what Milley did was almost certainly unconstitutional and possibly even illegal. And so he's getting all kinds of crap for it, but he's not the true villain here. And it's not the advisors to Donald Trump who are the true villains either. I get it. Roger Stone was advising Trump on all this. He came up with the whole Stop the Steal thing back in 2016 when they thought that Trump was going to lose to Hillary Clinton. That's when they were ready to roll out Stop the Steal. They had branded it and everything. They had a website. But, and he was also an advisor to Nixon. And back when Nixon was president, James Schlesinger, his defense secretary, did essentially the same thing Mark Milley did. He convened a whole bunch of military folks and said, don't, whatever Nixon tells you to do, don't do it. But nobody's talking about the real villains here. In the case of Nixon, Barry Goldwater walked over to the White House and said, the Republicans have decided we're going to vote with the Democrats in the Senate to remove you from office if you don't resign. And the Republicans in the United States Senate had 2 chances. Once in 2019, well, the second time was after Trump had already lost the election, but they had 2 chances to remove Trump from office or to forbid him from ever again running for office. And they whiffed on both. They took a pass on both. 50 Republican senators. General Mark Milley is not the villain in this story. The villain in this story are the Republicans who did not have the courage of people like Barry Goldwater back in the day to stand up for what's right rather than just going for what's convenient or expedient. And I think we just need to plant that flag in the ground. It's like nobody is talking about the fact, everybody's talking about Milley, and nobody's pointing out that a whole year earlier, the Republicans could have removed Trump.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And as weird as Mike Pence is, and his whole, periods for Pence and abortions, I don't think that he would have tried to start a war to stay in power. Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders. These are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Delaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You can say, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now, that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Milley this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. That most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but maybe 100, maybe 2. Who knows? Seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky, but this one is just it's my masterpiece, and you'll get an autographed copy, or you can get the the Free Speech TV T-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers to the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartmann, and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with a little, and we're having a fine time doing it. I look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution will be doubled. Call now. Thank you. So we have over at HartmannReport.com my daily rant, which you can find there. And over at ThomHartmann.com, we have the free newsletter, which lists every single website, gives you hot links right out to every single website for every single story that I talk about throughout the program during the course of the day. And then, of course, also at ThomHartmann.com, we've got our weekly video that we put up. And the one this week is kind of mind-boggling. It turns out, if you remember back when Anthony Kennedy resigned from the U.S. Supreme Court right after Trump made remarks about his son Justin, who had signed off on $1 billion worth of loans from Deutsche Bank to Donald Trump, Kennedy resigned, and Brett Kavanaugh was nominated by Trump, and Christine Blasey Ford said he was, essentially guilty of sexual assault. All kinds of tips went to the FBI. And we have just found out what happened to those tips. It's all over at ThomHartmann.com. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So let me just be very clear. John Adams was actually, with the XYZ affair, was accused of treason, that he was ginning up a conflict with France. This was in the election of 1800. When Adams was president, he was running for re-election. Jefferson was vice president. He was running against him. And the newspapers on Jefferson's side were promoting the idea that the year earlier, the XYZ affair, which is where Adams had sent 3 guys over to France to negotiate with the French, and they came back and said they tried to bribe us. And it was a whole messy thing. And it led to basically a Cold War between America and France, kind of a standoff at sea. The Jefferson folks were saying he was just doing this to get himself elected, right? You've got Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon's defense secretary, James Schlesinger, saying, and his chief of staff, General, I'd have to go back and look at my article again, Clark, whoever it was. Anyway, his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying, don't push the button. If Nixon says push the button, don't do it, basically. And then you had General Milley doing the same thing. The difference between these is that in Nixon's case, Republicans actually removed Nixon from office. In our case, in the case of Donald Trump, Republicans had 2 different opportunities to remove Trump from office after he was impeached, after it was obvious that he tried to bribe the president of Ukraine to manufacture dirt on Joe Biden. He was trying to get Ukraine to interfere in our election the way that he had tried to, and successfully gotten Russia to interfere in our election in 2016. They hacked the DNC and gave that information, and off to the races, right? So Trump tried it again. He tried committing treason twice. And every single Republican in the United States Senate knew it, and they knew it in detail because the House impeachment managers laid this out in detail. And still, 50 Republicans in the United States Senate, who just 50 years earlier had said, or 45 years earlier had said about Richard Nixon, oh my God, we can't tolerate this. And what did Nixon do? He paid for a break-in at the Democratic National Headquarters at the Watergate. which was chump change compared to trying to bribe a foreign leader to manufacture dirt on your political opponent. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. But 50 Republicans said, oh, yeah, well, you know what Trump did? It's just fine with us. Or we're not happy about it, but we're not going to do anything about it. Really? Amazing. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
Hey, if California had the same death rate as Texas, we would have seen 16,000 more American deaths right here in California.
Wow.
If we had the same number that Florida has, we would see 24,000. Florida sees 600 more deaths per million than California does. All you have to do is multiply that times the 40 million.
Yeah, you're the numbers guy, Larry. That's amazing. And it illustrates the difference between blue states and red states in terms of policy.
And so basically what Texas and Florida has done is they put a price on the head of every American person here and decided that, hey, to keep the economy going, we're willing to let those people die so that we can keep our economy going.
Yeah, that was during the Trump time. And now they're willing to let them die in order to try to hurt Joe Biden.
Yes. On top of that, I think they've done the math. They probably know that this thing is killing more minorities than whites, and they're saying, hey, you know, we're benefiting because we're getting rid of more Democrats than we're getting rid of our own people. I can't believe that they haven't done that math, and the reason why they're so gung-ho about making sure that they kill their own people in their own state.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you can expand that logic to include their refusal to expand Medicaid as well.
Yeah.
And not provide health care to those same folks. Yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you very much, Larry. Larry's the man with the statistics. He's always got some great numbers for us. Jim in Phoenix. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Regarding your first guest, when you brought up the example of Denmark, and she immediately said, well, Denmark's an all-white country, wasn't she implicitly saying that our COVID problems are non-white people?
Well, she came right out and said it. She said that black people are suspicious of government because of Tuskegee and that kind of stuff. And it's a canard. It's contrary. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, that's all contrary to the evidence that it's white Trump supporters that are driving this whole problem now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yes, there is some black vaccine reluctance. It is not the epidemic that Republicans try to portray it as, and it's nothing compared to what's going on in Republican circles. And just trying to racialize this thing, I think, is really unfortunate. Jim, thank you for the call. Oh, pardon me. Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's up?
Yeah, if I could bring up Jennifer again. You know, she's trying to bury history regarding COVID and Trump. And it really irks me because I saw a documentary over the weekend, The Silence of Others, which is about the Spanish Civil War and Franco and how he terrorized people. And even after he died, it still kept into the 80s, by the way.
Really?
But Spain, yeah, and Spain made, yes. You should see that documentary.
Where do I find it?
It's on Netflix.
Huh. The Silence of Others.
Yes. Pedro Moldovar did it. And, you know, right after Franco died, there was a law in 1977 in Spain that was meant to bury the history of Franco's terrorism.
Yeah.
And it passed. And it's still in effect today. And so that's what the Republicans are, yes, that's what the Republicans are trying to do. They want to bury the history of COVID because even on March 6th of last year, Trump in South Carolina at one of his maggot rallies said COVID was a Democrat hoax.
Right. Yeah, I recall that.
Yeah, and she would deny he would ever say that, or ever said that. You know damn well she would deny that. And the same thing goes for January 6th. They're trying to bury that history. You know, calling those arrested, you know, they're political prisoners now.
Right.
You know, that's what they're borrowing something that Angela Davis said 50 some odd years ago. You know, regarding Black Panthers being arrested. Remember, they were political prisoners. So now the right is borrowing, is stealing from the left, something that we've used. And they've been doing it for a while, the fake news. That was something that we on the left came up with about Fox News when that documentary came out in 2002 about Fox.
Yeah. So this movie on Netflix, the what of others? The Silence of Others?
The Silence of Others. Please watch it, Tom.
Yeah, I've got to check this out. I'm making a note to myself, which is why I asked you to clarify. That's fascinating, Dennis. I will check it out. And let me just bring this back to Milley. Look, I am no huge fan of General Milley, but Trump and his advisors, they started using these tactics. Like, remember Andrew McCabe? They took him down.
Well, before his pension, before he could receive his pension.
Right, the day before.
General McMaster. Trump said General McMaster could not brief. There was another one. Colonel Vindman, who I have nothing but respect for. The right wing. I listen to a lot of right wing media because, like I said, I'm fascinated with this fascism. Right? Mm-hmm. They were saying that Colonel Vindman said that General Milley was wrong. And I do have nothing but respect for Colonel Vindman, right? But anyways, I start this pattern that Trump and his advisors had is to hurt people, all right? Yeah. And what they were going to do with Milley is Trump was doing middle of the night appointments. Now, we can all just laugh about these appointments, like the Kash Patel guy. There's others. We can laugh about these appointments and say, well, it's just Trump's drinking buddies. He's trying to help them out, beef up their resume on the way out. Those people had power, Tom, and they were trying to put Milley out of the loop. They were trying to peer him out. Milley, for whatever reason, refused to be peered out. And what he did may have saved the earth, Tom. And that's not hyperbole.
No, I agree with you. I think if Trump thought he could get away with it, I think he would have declared a nuclear war to stay in power. I think he was that nuts. Dave, thank you for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 46 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Chris in Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Chris, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up?
Yeah, I'd like to say that drug companies do not make...
Chris, I can't hear you. You need to put the microphone right next to your mouth. Even if you're talking to me on speaker, just put that microphone right next to your mouth.
The drug companies don't make vaccines for free. Mega profits come from our tax dollars to pay for them. And the virus ends, so do the mega profits. And Republicans owned by the drug companies keep the virus going to keep the drug profits going.
I think that's a stretch, Chris. The vaccines are very profitable, and it's one of the reasons why we need the TRIPS waivers and all that. But I'm not willing to go down that conspiracy rabbit hole with you. I'm sorry. Susan in Decatur, Georgia. Hey, Susan, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's on your mind?
You have asked the question a couple times about why the GOP is killing off their people with COVID. Mm-hmm. And two people have called you previously, one on Monday, a guy, and then a couple weeks ago, a lady, and they said that the government was doing it or the oligarchs are doing it to take the people's houses and land. And you said you've pushed back twice and been like, no, I can't go that far. But I'd just like to say for mi raza, mi gente, here, this is the colonizers have been taking this land for 401 years. Mm-hmm. So on Hispanic Indigenous Heritage Month, I'd just like to say that even Bush Jr., you can look this up, Bush Jr. changed the law on owning a house, and any indigenous person that did not have a Social Security number had to forfeit their house over to the U.S. government. So 12 people out of my family lost their home because of that change.
Whoa. Because because they were living on a reservation, or they just were...
No, because
what
they
am I
don't
missing
have
here?
Social Security numbers. They're
Why not just apply for a Social Security number?
Not if you're undocumented. When they say you're here illegally, even though your people were here before.
So these were Native Americans who had no birth certificates?
They were born in Mexico.
Oh, I see. Okay. So
but they were here in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, 90s.
Yeah, no, I get it. So what you're saying is that the order that Bush signed said that you can only own a house if you're a citizen. That's not the case. I mean,
no, you have to have a Social Security number. And unless you are a citizen or a permanent resident, you do not have.
Then how do the Chinese buy so much of our property? Why? How is it that
I don't know.
12% of all the real estate on the West Coast is owned by Chinese nationals?
Well, we just had 3 Section 8 homes on my street get bought out by a Chinese company in an all-black neighborhood.
Right, and I guarantee you that Chinese company does not have a Social Security number. So I'm confused here, Susan.
I don't know. But if you are undocumented and if you're on this land, you have to have proof of a Social Security number.
Huh. Okay, I don't.
Or you have to have a family member that has a Social Security number because we didn't have a lot of my family did not have Social Security numbers, so they had a home they had for 10 years. Wow. Sometimes 20 years, and they had to turn that house over to another family member, put it in somebody else's name.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know enough about this to speak intelligently to it.
But if they were doing that for this reason, they're doing it for COVID too.
I think that's a leap. But, let me see what I can learn about it. Susan, thank you very much for the call. We'll be right back. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So there are actually some substantial differences between the Taliban, the Afghanistan Taliban, the group that has, that Donald Trump signed what his Secretary of State his defense secretary and his national security advisor referred to as surrender documents back in early 2020. There's a difference between the Taliban and ISIS, or even K-ISIS, which is how they're identifying the ISIS group that has emerged in Afghanistan. The main difference is that the Taliban's ambitions are largely confined to Afghanistan. They want to be a regional force. They were the government of Afghanistan before. They want to be the government of Afghanistan again. ISIS, on the other hand, wants to reestablish the entire caliphate across the Middle East, across Northern Africa, across parts of Southern Europe. And this is going to bring these two into conflict. I've got a whole video about this over at thomhartmann.com for folks who support the program. Check it out. And welcome back, Jane in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Jane, what's up?
Hi, hopefully you can hear me okay.
I hear you just fine.
Right?
What's up?
All right, great. I'm just also calling about the segment that you had with Jennifer at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. I am also, like you, I'm 110% in favor of vaccination. I am vaccinated. My entire family is as well. The reason why I'm calling is that I just really... I hope that we can also all get behind the idea that it's not just vaccination. And I hope that we can also, as much as we all hated Trump and are very glad that era is over, I hope we all continue to keep our current government and the Biden administration accountable also. And that means that we need to be doing a lot more with masking, actual masks that are really good quality, not neoprene, not surgical, stuff that actually protects you against Delta, which is much more heavy-duty stuff is necessary. We need to be ventilating environments. We need to be possibly doing more lockdowns than we are. We need to be avoiding huge public gatherings and not having concerts with tens of thousands of people allowed. There's a lot more that we should be doing that other countries are doing, and that's, it's not all about vaccines. And I just worry that we're getting into this place a little bit with this kind of smugness and this anger towards people who are not vaccinated yet. And while I wholeheartedly understand that, because I would like to have a life again as well, you know, it's a lot more than just getting vaccinated.
Yeah,
if you look at
but the vaccine is the key to it, Jane, and that's why Denmark has not only opened their country back up, they're throwing away their masks because everybody's vaccinated. And here in the United States, where I think it's 56% fully vaccinated and about 72%, you know, starting vaccinated. You know,
but
the eligible
look at
population.
Israel as well. They have a very high vaccination rate, probably the highest in the world, and yet Delta broke through. And so that's why
it's breaking through, but it's not causing deaths. Their hospitals are not overwhelmed.
No, I understand that, but it is causing a lot of people long-term disability, long COVID.
No, I get it. And the reason I didn't debate masks with Jennifer is because that's what we debated 2 weeks ago, the last time she was on the show, was masks. And this time, you know, her organization sent out this press release saying, you know, oh my God, COVID vaccines and things like that. And so that's what we went after. Jane, I need to move along, but thank you for the call. George in Chicago. Hey, George, what's up?
Oh, thanks for taking my call, Tom. I thought it was illustrative that your guest made the assertion that Denmark is an all-white society. I think it shows how having a discriminatory and, if you'll permit me saying so, a racist frame of mind blinds you to facts either willfully or accidentally, so to speak. Most of the countries of Western Europe, including Scandinavia, have sizable populations of black and brown folks, a lot of whom have the right to travel to Europe because the countries they come from used to be colonies.
Right.
And,
do you know what the racial composition of Denmark is? I didn't know right off the top of my head, so I couldn't respond to that.
I honestly don't know, and I wish I did. But I've read articles on and off over the last few years that talk about how many Pakistanis are living in Norway, or how many people from Africa are living in Sweden. And these are not
the Scandinavian countries have taken in a lot of refugees in the last decade. In fact, to the point where it's creating a political crisis in some areas. Mostly Syrian refugees. I mean, you know, from the Syrian war. That Donald Trump so screwed up when he stabbed the Kurds in the back. But I just thought it was an attempt to shift the blame for the problem of people not being vaccinated in America away from the Republican Party, which is actively promoting these memes, and onto the backs of black people. Once again, you know, it's like, oh, it's the problem is black people. I thought that was the subtext of that message, and A, I'm not buying it, and B, I think it's demeaning. It's
well, you know, Richard Nixon put the capital R in Republican into the Army's racism with his Southern strategy, and the party's pursued it ever since. One quick point about Israel. One of the reasons Delta broke out there, even with their high level of vaccination, is that, like every other country, kids weren't vaccinated yet, and it really got established in kids under 12.
That's true, and also there are some religious groups that are fighting vaccination in Israel as well, and you know, hard right religious groups. But you know, I also didn't want to get into the swamp of Israeli politics. George, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. Wild Alaskan Company, delicious, sustainably sourced seafood delivered right to your door. More information at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. and Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics. More info at mackweldon.com/Tom.
We say fight back!
Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders, these are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, you know, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Dulaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You could say, you know, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Miller this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, you know, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. That most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but maybe 100, maybe 200. Who knows? And seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. The Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky. But this one is just, it's my masterpiece, and you'll get an autographed copy. Or you can get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers to the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartmann, and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with a little, and we're having a fine time doing it. I look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution will be doubled. Call now. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the second hour of our program. So I have a question for you. Given what happened in California day before yesterday, where Gavin Newsom won in a blowout against Larry Elder, a guy who is basically pitching what has become the standard Republican line, which is, we don't need no stinking masks, we don't need no stinking vaccines, we don't trust our election officials. If Republicans didn't win, it was fraud. Although Larry Elder, facing a 30% blowout, basically said, okay, I lost the election. God bless him for that, right? At least he acknowledged it. Although his website the day before the election had said it was election fraud was why he lost. But nonetheless, these Republican positions that are going to become absolutely essential in the next 6 months as, 2022 primary season, every single member of the U.S. House of Representatives is up for re-election next year. Every single member, 100% of them. And probably a majority of state elected officials across the country, state senators, state members of the House or Assembly or whatever they call it in their particular states, are up for re-election, and they face primary elections. And the primary elections typically happen mostly, next spring. And on the Republican side, to get through the primary election, they've got to do this whole, I'm with Trump and, no masks and no vaccines and right? And as I said when I was debating Jennifer in the previous hour, I believe that the reason why that is because they want Joe Biden to fail. They want the pandemic to continue. They want it to hurt our economy. Joe Biden, in fact, is going to address the nation in the next hour or so about this issue by way of trying to promote his $3.5 trillion over 10-year, his $350 billion a year reconciliation package. And it's interesting, day before yesterday, he had private meetings with Kyrsten Sinema and with Joe Manchin. Nobody has said a word. Sinema's office said they were productive. Manchin's office hasn't said anything. And today, Biden's going to come out and pitch this. But in any case, the question is, how long before the GOP stops talking Trump because they realize that they're all going to end up like Larry Elder and starts talking like George W. Bush? In other words, goes back to this thing of, well, we're compassionate conservatives and we just want little government. We just want to privatize Medicare to make it more efficient. We just want to turn Social Security over to the big New York banks to increase its survivability, its viability. We just want to privatize all the nation's public schools because, for-profit does things better. How long before they start talking like that again instead of the crazy? I mean, just consider, what the Republicans have been doing in the last few months. Greg Prentice down in Florida was a major Trump guy. On Facebook, he was railing against COVID-19 restrictions. He was a software developer, but he had in the Tampa area, he headed up the local Republican Party's Election Integrity Committee. And he refused to get vaccinated. And he showed up at the hospital a couple of days ago experiencing brain fog and having difficulty breathing, was put on a ventilator and died the next day. And 2 days after he died, according to the Tampa Bay Times, the people around him, or his Republican buddies, are claiming that he was killed by the hospital. Honest to God, on Facebook, is this a winning strategy for Republicans? On Facebook, this guy writes, Tampa General Hospital ER and ICU doctors are criminals and murderers. They intubate everyone and stick them on a ventilator for no reason. All capital letters, no reason. Just out of precaution, as the doctor told me, without consent from the family. Tampa General Hospital is evil. We lost Greg Prentice, a mentor to many in Hillsborough County, due to the engineered virus. Really? You think this is going to, I get it, there's the QAnon crazies, but you think this is going to go beyond that? And then, take this the step beyond this. In the middle of the pandemic, Mark Sumner writing about this over at Daily Kos, by the way, in the middle of a pandemic, his headline, in the middle of a pandemic, Republicans permanently strip power from public health officials. And you just get these numbers. I mean, this is mind-boggling. Sumner starts out by saying, imagine that right after 9/11, when you had two buildings collapse, and then a third one a little later, fires and disasters. Imagine if Rudy Giuliani, the mayor at that point, had said, I'm going to shut down the fire department. While the buildings were still on fire. Kaiser Health News, he notes, reports that in 26 states, Republicans, quote, took away powers state and local officials used to protect the public against infectious diseases. Now, these are authorities, these are powers, governmental powers that date back to the flu pandemic of 1918 and before. Sumner writes, now in over half the nation, Republicans have acted to permanently weaken the powers of public health officials. Mask mandates have been completely banned in some states, including Arkansas, where the masks were declared to be a burden on public health. Idaho gave county commissioners the veto power over public health orders. Kansas and Tennessee no longer allow health officials to order a school closed, no matter how dire the circumstances. Texas and Florida governors issued executive orders that stripped power from city and county officials and school boards and even private businesses to require the use of masks. 5 states are blocking masks from stopping COVID right now. 9 states have taken away the ability for anyone to order a mask mandate, no matter what the threat. In addition, Mark Sumner writes, 16 other states have taken away the authority of local health officials to issue such mandates or to require quarantines or to close businesses, schools, or public facilities. 17 states, Mark Sumner writes, made it illegal for either government agencies or private businesses to require proof of COVID vaccination. So how does this win elections for Republicans? What am I missing here? And if this takes down the Republican Party next year, and I think there's a good chance that there's going to be a lot of Republican losses next year, and not just because so many of their own voters have died, but because I think, Americans are waking up. You have over 60% support across the United States, enthusiastic support for Joe Biden's mask and vaccine mandates. if the Republican Party goes down in flames in 2022, are they going to double down on voter fraud? Are they going to continue doubling down on neo-fascism? Are they going to continue to try to take the United States in the same direction that Viktor Orban took Hungary, or Vladimir Putin took Russia, or Jair Bolsonaro is taking Brazil? Is that their strategy? Or is the GOP going to collapse? And if it collapses, what comes out of the ashes? My personal prediction, and I have been wrong on a lot of predictions, so this is just my personal opinion. I've been right a lot too. But my personal prediction is that the Republicans are going to get their asses kicked in the elections in 2022. And in 2023, in anticipation of the 2024 election, they're going to try to go back to Paul Ryan, John McCain, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, Republicanism, and maybe even re-embrace Liz Cheney. We'll see. I could be way out there. It looks right now like that's impossible. And in some ways, the GOP embrace, the ongoing GOP embrace of Trump and Trumpism is a good thing for the Democratic Party, because the more right-wing crazies like Larry Elder who get elected in the primaries between this fall and the end of next spring, the more Democrats will be able to run ads like Rachel Bitkofer's Strike PAC is running. I retweeted one of them this morning. You can see it on my Twitter feed. It's just brilliant, an absolutely brilliant ad. The more you're going to see those kinds of ads popping up, only customized to individual Republicans. So is this going to work? And then I suppose the flip side of this is the Democrats' strategy of trying to get this pandemic under control and trying to lower drug prices going to work. We just had, Bernie was tweeting about this yesterday. It's what caught my eye. And then I saw the piece in the New York Times last night. And, that a congressman from Portland, or for the Portland area, Kurt Schrader, he's one of the 3 Democrats on the committee. By one vote, this committee could have passed legislation that would allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. But Schrader's been taking money from Big Pharma, and so he screwed the whole thing up. And it's putting the entire Biden plan, the entire Biden $3.5 trillion plan, in jeopardy. Because our sellout Democratic congressman here from Oregon decided that the money from Big Pharma was more important to him than this just makes me crazy. I tweeted him yesterday. I said, Representative Schrader, please tell me, why were you the vote? I mean, all the Republicans were opposed to Medicare negotiating drug prices, but Democrats? So, will the Democratic Party take back the party? But I think more importantly, how long before the GOP starts talking about compassionate conservatism again? What is the future of the Republican Party? Are they going to continue, trashing vaccines and masks? It doesn't seem to be working for them. We'll be back. It's 17 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I got a crazy alert for you about Paul Ryan, and then I'll be picking up your phone calls right after this. And welcome back. Holly in Washington, D.C. Hey, Holly, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I was just calling to add some more information to that conversation you had about foreigners buying up all our property here in the United States. So I was involved in a number of transactions in San Francisco, and what I can tell you for sure is that the people that buy these properties, they go to Delaware. Well, they don't go there, but they hire an attorney and file for an LP or an LLC.
And those are the kind of the shell companies that hold a whole bunch of properties.
So then they get an employer ID number, an EIN.
That's exactly, and the IRS could care less whether you're an individual or whether you're a company,
right?
As long as it can tax you.
So the solution for this woman who called, if they had the resources, because it costs about $200 to buy a Delaware corporation online, the solution would have been for her undocumented relatives with no Social Security numbers to create a corporation in Delaware and get an EIN, an employer identification number, which is kind of like a Social Security number for a business from the IRS, which are free, and then put the property in the name of the corporation. It's probably more trouble than it's worth.
Well, yeah, but that's how people get around it, for sure. And I just wanted to add that you don't have to have a Social Security number to acquire property here.
Yeah,
I know that for certain.
Makes absolute sense. Well, thank you for that. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. Good talking to you. Albert in Big Sandy, Texas. Hey, Albert, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom.
Hey, Albert.
I wanted to talk to you. I think that the voter ID, we should call their bluff and go all in. When I vote in Texas, I showed them my driver's license, and they put it under a reader. And I don't know what popped up on the screen, but then I was allowed to vote. Everybody's got a driver's license or a Texas ID or state ID. If you use your ID, the address on your driver's license is the precinct you vote in, you can get rid of the greater voter suppression tool, and that is voter registration. If you're not registered to vote, you can't vote. Now, how are you going to refuse somebody to vote because they're not registered to vote?
Well, except for North Dakota. North Dakota does not require voter registration. You just show up and vote.
There you go. That's right. That's the way it should be throughout the whole country.
I agree. Voter registration was put into place back in the 1800s, in the late 1800s, as a way of basically keeping out black people, and this is before the failure of Reconstruction in 1876.
Well, voter registration can be used as a party tool. That if you want to vote in the party primaries, you have to be registered with them.
Right.
But as far as the general, because that's a private club, they can let anybody, whoever they want to, vote in their primary.
Although the states do administer those elections, and that's why that bleed over is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, but being able to remove people off of the voter registration without you knowing about it for some reason like, oh, you didn't vote in 4 years.
Right.
That's just not right.
I know, but the Supreme Court said, when Ohio was doing that, when the Republicans, Secretary of State in Ohio was just wiping out voters in black areas in some of Ohio's largest cities, Supreme Court said, that's cool.
Yeah, and that needs to be stopped.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Albert. I absolutely agree. Thank you very much for the call. And that's why we need, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and whatever the replacement for H.R. 1 that the Democrats are coming up with. Now Joe Manchin's on this thing. Hey, let's bring it on. Let's do it. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So with some fancy footwork math, you can take the GDP of the United States, the productivity, the amount of wealth that is produced, or goods and services that are produced every year by American workers, and divide it by the number of workers, and what you get is that the average worker in America is producing about $75 an hour worth of value for their employer. And the minimum wage pays them about 10% of that value. Now, back in 1950, the minimum wage paid 30% of the value of the productivity that the average worker is producing for their employer. If we took the minimum wage up to $15 an hour tomorrow, it would still be in the neighborhood of 20%. So there's a strong case for increasing the minimum wage based on history. I lay this all out in the new video that we have just for our people who are supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Okay, our crazy alert for the day. Paul Ryan studies psychology. Seriously. Paul Ryan was Speaker of the House, the head Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives when Donald Trump won the election in 2016. Or won the Electoral College technicality. He actually lost the election by 3 million votes. And I think we need to say that over and over and over again. When in 2016, when Donald Trump lost the election by 3 million votes, but became president through the technicality of the Electoral College, Paul Ryan was Speaker of the House and, head Republican. And a friend of his, a donor of his, who was based out of New York City, actually, a rich guy, who happened to be a doctor, reached out to Paul Ryan and said, you need to, quote, you need to understand what narcissistic personality disorder is in order to deal with Donald Trump, end quote. There's a whole story about this. I mean, this is from Bob Woodward's book. So at first Ryan was like, what? Narcissistic personality disorder? Come on, why do I have to study psychology just because Donald Trump got elected? But he did. He at least Googled it, and what he found was that, oh my God, Donald Trump actually is a pathological narcissist. He actually is mentally ill. And so Ryan started digging through this psychology of narcissism, of narcissistic personality disorder. And out of that, and the thing that actually closed the deal for Paul Ryan, ultimately, according to Bob Woodward and Robert Costa's new book, is that Trump couldn't understand why he should denounce neo-Nazis who rallied in Charlottesville because Trump said, these people love me. Why should I trash talk them? Why should I put them down? So, your crazy alert. Yes, Paul Ryan studies psychology. How weird does it get? Dave in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I heard on YouTube that there was a survey of what is important to you for your Republican representative, and 59% of Republicans said that understanding that Donald Trump was denied the presidency in 2020, which I think is insane. But I use this as proof to not only disagree with you, I just want to go a step further.
Well, hang on just a second, Dave, before you do that. Couldn't that also mean that the Republican Party is just shrinking? I mean, you got 59% of what used to be...
Even if it is, there were 72 million votes for Donald Trump in 2020. How much shrinking could it do?
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
And a lot of Democrats might be apathetic in the next election.
Yeah, so we have about 30 seconds to the break, Dave. Your point?
Well, my point is that once upon a time, we had Walt. I know this is a step, but I'll bring it to the Republican issue. Walt Disney went bankrupt 3 times. Once after this, introducing Mickey Mouse, and the reason is he was able to come back is because society would cut people a break. We didn't have credit checks and whatnot. I'm using this as an example that people today just feel powerless, and therefore they need a sense of agency. So that's why they go for these crazy antics.
So, I get it. I totally get it. It's a populist response to neoliberalism, is the way that a political economist or a political analyst would put it. And I think you're absolutely right, Dave. And it's why, by the way, Bernie did as well as Trump in a lot of those states, in a lot of these very red states, like West Virginia.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with your calls right after the break. It's 27 minutes and change past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Speaking the truth to multinational corporations, we'd really rather you didn't know. Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders, these are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Dulaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You could say, you know, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Miller this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, you know, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. That most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but maybe 100, maybe 2, who knows? Seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky. But this one is just, it's my masterpiece. And you'll get an autographed copy. Or you can get the the Free Speech TV t-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers to the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartman. and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with a little, and we're having a fine time doing it. We look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution will be doubled. Call now. Thank you. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. You know, the media is pushing this crazy narrative that with regard to masks and vaccines and COVID and all this kind of stuff, that America is divided. Like, you know, half of us want masks and half of us don't, or half of us want vaccines. It's just not true. 75% of Americans have received at least one dose of vaccine. 70% of Americans think that we should have mask mandates in all of our schools. Only 17%, this is from the latest Pew studies, polling, only 17% of Americans are opposed to mask mandates in schools. And what we have is this tiny fringe that is being cranked. Now we're learning from China as well as from Russia and perhaps other countries, plus the people in, a relatively small number of people, Trump followers, who think that tearing the country apart is a good thing and somehow it'll hurt Joe Biden and hurt the Democrats in the next election. It's crazy. I got a whole video rant about this over at thomhartmann.com that you can check out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and John in San Francisco. Hey, John, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. The female that called that you were interviewing, Jennifer, about Denmark, actually has the exact racial balance of African Americans in the United States as Denmark does of immigrants in their country, which is roughly 14%.
Really?
And those are Turkish, Syrian, Iraqi, Lebanese, Pakistani, Somali, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Romania, and Poland are the most common countries of Danish immigrants.
Right.
And
so the Romanians and the Poles would be, quote, white Europeans, but everybody else not so much. So we're 14% African Americans in the United States, and Denmark is 14% immigrants in those categories.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Anyway, they don't even consider Greenland ethnic. They're just Danish.
Right.
And when I lived in Denmark, the first thing kids would say to me, because I was going to school there and learning the language and such, and they would say to me, "Wow, you guys in the United States have a big problem with race in your country." And I heard that several times before I figured out a way to defeat that comment. Mm-hmm. And I would point out that they have the Greenlandic population there, and they're second-class citizens back in the 70s, roughly. I mean, they were what's it called? They were bringing them into their society.
Aren't the Greenlanders the descendants of the Vikings? Aren't they also Scandinavian?
Well, they're Inuit, more Inuit than but the thing is I've been calling myself Nordic for a long time, and when I write on applications, I say European American or Nordic, right, rather than check off the box in white. And when I lived in Jamaica in the 70s, my dad had to go down there because he couldn't practice ophthalmology. He was an eye surgeon. He had to move to the University of British West Indies in Kingston to learn a procedure called interocular implants. They do that every day now all across the planet. It takes 5 minutes. But back then, it was a few hours, and you couldn't practice that in the United States because it hadn't been FDA approved. And when I was there in Jamaica, one of the first things I learned was how to stop thinking in black and white terms, because everybody in Jamaica is just Jamaican.
Yeah.
And, and you just move on from there, because I had
it's a genuinely multi-ethnic society.
Well, I don't know if it's multi-ethnic. It's just you're Jamaican or you're not. You know,
Right.
There was no parsing of you know peoples. And two of the most friendly places I've ever visited in my life are Denmark and Jamaica. So you know, I can't.
I've been to both, and they're right up there. In I would add Thailand and Ireland to that list, but you know, in any case.
I want to go to both places. You know.
Well, that's fascinating,
Anyway,
John. If you want to make another point, go ahead and make it. But otherwise, I'm going to move along.
Okay, well, I wanted to tell you this for several years. I was doing research on a Chinese bicycle production, and I stumbled across this company that's a Chinese communist company since the 1950s that produced about 50 million bikes. And when you were living there in '86 with your wife, they produced 3 million bikes. And you know the name of the company?
No.
The Flying Pigeon. So you were surrounded not only by you.
I am haunted by these robotic pigeons.
Thank you for laughing, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you for laughing. That was exactly the goal I was trying to achieve.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, John. Thanks for the call. It's great to hear the flying pigeons. Amazing. Daryl in Norcross, Georgia. Hey, Daryl, what's on your mind?
He just threw me for a loop with those pigeons, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're spying on us, Daryl. Look out.
I know those alien pigeons. Let me make this quick, Tom. You made my day with the pigeons. Tom, I'm going to take you to the woodshed. You do this. You've done this on several occasions, Tom. With it, you tippy toe sometimes. Sometimes you can be Mr. Nice Guy when you get your guests or callers that use these code words, these comments when it relates to race. So, as Daryl from Norcross, Georgia, I'm giving you permission, Tom, to put the hammer down. Now I noticed this, Tom. This is minor, but you are very aggressive when it comes to white males. But if a black caller calls up or a female caller or something like that, you tend to be a little less hardcore. You really do. But it's subtle.
Could be. I mean, that just could be the way I was raised or something. I don't know. But,
okay, so I'm just going to say this. I was very offended because here we go with the dog whistles. Black people are causing COVID. Right. And I'm like, really?
You're talking about Jennifer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. And she's not here to defend herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's okay.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, so what are you saying, Daryl? I should have, I mean, there's a certain point. First of all, number one, I would like conservatives to be willing to come back and debate me again in the future. And if you just call somebody a racist straight up, it's unlikely that that's going to happen. And it kind of shuts down the conversation anyway, because, I mean, how do you respond to somebody telling you that you're a racist? But what essentially I was saying was that that's a racist perspective. I told her, I said, you're trying to racialize this conversation, and I'm talking about a disease here.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I know it's a slippery slope, and you tap dance. I get that, and I understand. Maybe some other callers can be more or direct than I am, but I know you've had to want them to come back, and that's the game plan for your show, and I dig it. I like it, and I like to hear what they're thinking. When I say they're the Republican, whatever you want to call them, but it's like, dude, it's like it's been 2 years, and it's like here we go again. Black folk causing the problem.
I know.
That dog don't hunt. That dog don't hunt.
I'm with you,
my friend.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate the call. Lee in Sepulveda, California. Hey, Lee, what's up?
What's up is your caller right now brought up something. I was at a library, and this guy was talking about the end of racism. And I told him to get on your show, that he had a really compelling argument. It's not what I called about, but if he calls in, I'm telling you, he is so strong with how to end it. It's unbelievable.
So you want to give me a one-sentence summary of how to end racism, Lee? Because I don't have a clue how to do it.
Oh, sure. With what I hate to, I hate to step on his, I hate to step on his presentation. It's so good, but I gave him your number and I told him to call, and it's
okay. We'll just leave it at that.
Really
what did you call about?
Yeah, what I called about is that you said last week about how'd you say? You said, what's the future of the Republican Party? Can it survive? And if it doesn't, what replaces it?
Right.
But the thing is, it needs to be demolished. It needs to be gotten rid of. And what like Jennifer, Stefano, and those, what nobody talks about is the original purpose of the Republican Party was to abolish slavery in the United States of America. That was the point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the wreckage of the Whig Party in the 1830s. Right. You're absolutely right. It was all about slavery.
Exactly. But here's the deal: what they produced, those Republicans, that party, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. It was the Democrats. It was the Democrats who added the exception, which kept slavery in.
Right.
I
didn't know that. You're talking about the writing of the 13th Amendment, which still allows. I mean, to this day, slavery is still legal in the United States. The only caveat is that you have to have been convicted of a crime to become enslaved.
Yeah, and we can end that by what we just did in California, a yes or no vote in this nation about keep those words in that 13th Amendment or get rid of them. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do a constitutional convention. We don't have to do it. How many people
we don't have national referendums, Lee, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, I don't know.
I know, but we can do it. We can ask. You can begin asking that question. Keep it in, get it out.
Yeah.
We, the people. You keep saying we, the people, can do it, and we can do that. It's a simple yes, no. Keep slavery, get rid of slavery.
But you're talking what this would require, Lee.
Wait a minute, but if we do it, we end the need of the Republican Party because they will have done what they set out to do, abolish slavery in this nation.
But that Republican Party no longer exists, Lee. First of all, that Republican Party died in 1966.
If we can separate the wheat from the chaff in the Republican Party, which is people like me, I'm a conservative Republican. I am for the abolishment of slavery and for the abolishment of the Republican Party that has become. We have the opportunity to start all over with a whole new 13th Amendment.
Okay, so here's how I would respond to that, if I may. Number one, what you're talking about would require a constitutional amendment, which requires 2/3 of the House and Senate and 3/4 of the states, and it's not going to happen. But number two, we've got a prison industrial complex, and we've got a number of states, almost all of them formerly slave states, that run prison systems that are insanely brutal, heavily racialized, and where the brutality is directed principally towards minority groups, and where they actually enslave people. They actually put people out in the fields and work them. It's particularly in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, and
firefighters on the West Coast.
Right, we can make that illegal because none of these people, whether it's a private prison corporation or whether it's just a state that loves the brutality of having radically brutal prisons. None of that is being done by saying, we are doing this because we are calling these people slaves because we can legally do this under the 13th Amendment. Now, you're correct, they could be doing that, but they're not. Instead, they're saying, this is how we punish. This is how we rehabilitate. This is our correction system. That is all subject to federal legislation. Or state legislation, for that matter. So we could fix that by law without messing with the 13th Amendment. Messing with the 13th Amendment is a huge lift that ain't going to happen. But state by state or nationally reforming our prisons. I mean, we had this so-called criminal justice reform 2 years ago, and everybody was like, "Oh, isn't that nice? Democrats and Republicans are getting together." And they let a couple of thousand people who had federal convictions for drugs out of jail, but the big thing, the reason why the Koch network and other right-wing billionaires were promoting this and taking credit for it, which blew my mind, was because they put into law this Rens Mea thing, state of mind is Latin for state of mind, so that corporate CEOs could not be prosecuted for crimes that their companies had committed under their orders unless you could prove that they intended for those crimes to kill people. Like PG&E has been convicted of 83 murders, I believe it is, in the Paradise Fire, because they, instead of hardening their high tension lines around, in that part of California, they had the money. They just put it in the pockets of their stockholders and their CEO and their senior executives instead. And so they got convicted. Well, under this so-called criminal justice reform, the CEO can't be held accountable for that because you can't prove that he intended for those people to die. even though that was the consequence. But if you or I did something stupid and somebody died, we'd be facing manslaughter charges. So instead of having phony criminal justice reform, I'm saying we need to have real criminal justice reform, which includes reforming how we run our prisons. Make sense, Lee?
Well, to a degree, but I'm so used to you saying no to my conservative Republican. It's incredible to me that you aren't going along with just black out those words.
Okay. Lee, I think hang on just a second. Lee.
Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
I absolutely agree with you that we should. I disagree that it's even possible. So let's do something that can be done. That's my point. Lee, thank you for the call. And welcome back. And Roger in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hey, Roger, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up?
How you doing, Tom?
I'm well. You need to get your mouth close to the microphone, Roger.
Get it closer.
I beg your pardon?
Is that good?
No.
Can you hear me now?
No, Roger, it's still sounding bad. I'm going to put you on hold and let Joyce work it out with you. Roger's on line 4, Joyce. Mike in Clinton Township, Michigan. Hey, Mike, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's up?
Thanks, Tom. I live in the Detroit area, and I know members of the Mason Union, the IBEW, the Teacher Union, the Construction Workers Union. A, they refuse to get vaccinated, a lot of the members, and B, they're flying Trump flags from their pickup truck.
Yeah, they're listening to right-wing talk radio is what's going on, Mike. It can be very persuasive.
And, you used to play Roosevelt clips all the time about unions and stuff. In fact, I became fascinated with Roosevelt, and actually it prompted me to read many books. And I don't think they realize that without the Democratic Party, they wouldn't be collecting a $35 or $40 an hour wage.
Or a pension. Or have good health insurance. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Maybe working for $10 an hour with nothing.
How do we get this point across?
As I said, I think that the problem that you have identified is it's a kind of a national epidemic, and I really think that of right-wingism, and I think it's being driven by right-wing talk radio. There's 1,500 right-wing talk radio stations in this country, and there's a couple of dozen progressive stations, and it's perpetual, continuous indoctrination. And this has been going on since the 80s. Rush Limbaugh went on the air in 86, as I recall, maybe 87. And it's been rolling along ever since. And I think that progressives, Democrats need to be buying radio stations. That's my pitch. And now, by the way, the Hispanic vote in California, and this should be a giant red flag for the Democratic Party that nobody's paying attention to. It was like a footnote in an article that I read this morning in the Washington Post. The Hispanic vote in California went 10% more to kick out Gavin Newsom than anybody expected. So where did that 10% swing come from? Spanish language radio stations that are running right-wing political talk have gone from literally not even existing a decade ago to being literally hundreds of them across the United States. And there's got to be, at least 30, 40, 50 of them in California. And
this is a problem in southern Florida as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And now it's spreading across Texas. It's spreading actually across the South. Wherever there's a large Spanish population and wherever, large enough to support a Spanish language radio station, you've got Republicans who are helping fund they're leasing radio stations, existing radio stations that would otherwise be playing polka music or leasing out time to religious broadcasters. They're now leasing their time to right-wing Spanish language programming, and you're going to see, mark my words, over in this next two election cycles, in 2022 and 2024, one of the stories in the media is going to be, how come Hispanics are suddenly voting Republican? And I'm telling you in advance, just record this and set it on a shelf someplace. It's because of Spanish language right-wing talk radio. We've got to build our talk radio infrastructure. Mike, thanks for the call. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So for this week's special video, for the supporters of our program that we put up over at thomhartmann.com, I stepped into the Wayback Machine, and it's really remarkable when you go back over what President Obama accomplished and the Democrats in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, what they accomplished between 2008 and 2010 when they controlled Congress and the White House versus everything that the Republicans blocked. I mean, the Democrats in those 2 years, they saved Chrysler, they saved General Motors, they turned 800,000 monthly job losses into job gains. They increased spending and education spending, decreased the cost of student loans, all kinds of great stuff. But then when the Republicans took over, they blocked a veterans job bill, they blocked Wall Street reform, they blocked immigration reform, they blocked political ad disclosure. And this is just a little tip of the iceberg. You can see the whole video over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And James in Portland, you have pigeon information, really?
Yeah, Tom. So I thought you'd like to know. When I was going to Portland State, in my biology class, I did a study on pigeons.
Okay.
And so I delved deeply into it, and it turns out pigeons do not land in trees. It's very strange.
Really? Why is that?
Well, they're probably robots, but the real reason... They came from the Egyptian area, and they lived in the cliffs. And so they treat buildings cliffs.
Right. So evolutionarily, they're designed for little holes in the rocks and things, and cliffs rather than trees. I'll bet their little feet. Regular birds, when they put weight in the center part, the rest of their foot automatically wraps around the branch. And that's how regular birds can fall asleep in a tree. It's entirely involuntary. It's the way their feet are constructed. Maybe pigeons' feet are constructed differently. Amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the reason I studied them because I was sitting in class at Portland State, and the teacher would always get interrupted because they were having sex in the window. You could hear them, getting it on. Yeah.
Fascinating. So it got your curiosity going. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, James, for that. I appreciate it. It's great to hear from you. Laura in Troy, Missouri. Hey, Laura, what's up?
Hi. I was just wondering about your comment, how you said how, as illustrated by Larry Elder's loss, that people are kind of rejecting Trumpism and it's going to hurt the Republicans in 2022 and help the Democrats. But I keep thinking in the back of my mind, what about the voter suppression laws and the ability of some of these states? What do you mean? Oh, you mean if they have to reverse that, or?
I mean, yeah. The Republicans are pushing these so-called voter integrity laws where they can literally overturn elections or throw out votes. They're pushing these because they realize that they're screwed otherwise. The American people just don't.
Yeah.
They're not buying what they're selling.
Yeah, but if we're unable to overturn those, do the Voting Rights Act, then they're going to cheat and win, and it's all going to be over.
In some states, yeah, and it's going to be. You're absolutely right, Laura, and that's a big problem, and that's why we need to blow up the filibuster. Let's try democracy, as I, my rant from Monday, and if we believe in democracy, let's do it in the Senate, and pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and this other new Voting Rights Act that has replaced the For the People Act. And make this illegal. It's just have national standards. We really need to do it. Laura, thank you for the call. You really put your finger on one of the essential issues of our time. It absolutely is true. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. We're going to check in with Dr. Michael Mann for about the next half hour and talk about all things climate. It's going to be fascinating. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com. Annie's Kit Clubs. Creativity delivered right to your door. More info at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. Wild Alaskan Company. Delicious, sustainably sourced seafood delivered right to your door. More information at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. And Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics. More info at mackweldon.com/Tom.
We say fight back!
Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders, these are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, you know, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Dulaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You could say, you know, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Milley this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, you know, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. That most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker, With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but maybe 100, maybe 2. Who knows? And seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. The Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky. But this one is just, it's my masterpiece, and you'll get an autographed copy. Or you can get the Free Speech TV t-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers to the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartmann, and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with a little, and we're having a fine time doing it. We look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution will be doubled. Call now. Thank you. Much older.
Is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with us is our old buddy, Dr. Michael Mann. He is one of the world's top climate scientists. Just absolutely brilliant guy. And hang on just a second. The distinguished professor of meteorology and the director of the Earth Systems Science Center at Penn State University, a member of the National Academy of Sciences and recipient of the Tyler Prize, author of several books, including his most recent, The New Climate War, which is absolutely brilliant. And I want to get him back one of these days soon just to do a really deep dive on that book. Michael Mann with 2Ns.net is his website, and you can tweet him at Michael E. Mann, M-A-N-N. And Michael, or Dr. Mann, welcome back to the program. It's so good to have you, and thanks for hanging out with us for a full half hour and doing a deep dive on some of these issues here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Great. So let's where to start? Let's start with tipping points. I believe it was George Monbiot wrote a piece about this a couple of weeks ago in The Guardian, suggesting that when you look at what seem to be stable systems, like if you spin a top on a table, the little toy, it'll spin and it'll look like it's stable for a little bit, and then it'll start to wobble, and then all of a sudden it'll fall over. And that wobble is an indication that it has hit the tipping point where the momentum of the spin can no longer sustain the vertical, resistance to gravity. And that dynamic of instability hearkening tipping points is holds true across all kinds of systems, from biological systems, illnesses, to geologic systems, to the spaceships. I mean, just name it. And was raising this concern that we're seeing climate instability that seems unprecedented, and might that augur that we're closer to tipping points than we think? What I realize I just threw a lot at you right there, but we've got a lot of time for this conversation. So, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, sure. Let's unpack that a little bit. There are tipping elements within the climate system. The average temperature of the Earth, we don't foresee that going through a tipping point. The more carbon we burn and put into the atmosphere, the more the planet warms up. And the climate models have done an excellent job in capturing that warming, predicting that warming. But there are other components, other things that are set in motion as a result of that warming that do contain what we sometimes call nonlinearities, that do contain threshold-like behavior, where if you push them up to a certain point, they sort of continue to stay with you, but then you push it a little bit more and off down the hill it goes. It's like a boulder that you push up the side of a mountain. Once it gets to the top of the mountain, all it takes is that one extra push, and it's going to go all the way down the mountain. Another analogy I like to use is a cliff. When you go off a cliff, it's not going to help you to have somebody take you back to the top of the cliff. You're done once you've gone off the cliff. And so we do fear that there are some tipping elements within the climate system. The temperature of the planet, that seems to be a smooth quantity that increases as we increase the carbon pollution. The amount of sea ice in the Arctic, the good news there is, while it's diminishing dramatically, and that's a real problem, if we stop the warming, and in fact, if we were able to cool the planet back down, the sea ice would come back. It doesn't go through a tipping point. Here's the bad news. The ice sheets, the Greenland ice sheet, the West Antarctic ice sheet, there are all sorts of mechanisms that govern the behavior of those ice sheets that exhibit that nonlinear behavior, that threshold-like behavior. Once you destabilize the ice shelves that are propping up parts of the West Antarctic ice sheet, then the ice starts to surge out into the ocean, and it becomes essentially unstoppable on the timescales that are relevant. Once that process is underway, you can't stop it. Even if you could cool the planet back down, it wouldn't stop. You set it in motion, and it sort of takes on a life of its own. So the collapse of the ice sheets is an example of a tipping point. We don't know how far we are at this point from warming the planet enough where we guarantee the collapse of large parts of the West Antarctic ice sheet, the part of the Antarctic ice sheet that's near sea level and can contribute readily to sea level rise, or the Greenland ice sheet. There's enough ice that could potentially collapse in those two ice sheets to give us 10 meters of sea level rise, 11 meters, 30 or more feet of sea level rise. How close we are to the point where we trigger unstoppable collapse of those ice sheets, we don't know. And it's the best argument for not moving any forward. We are like the blindfolded person who's approaching the edge of a cliff. The only sensible thing to do is to stop walking forward because you don't know how close you are to the cliff. And that applies here. Yeah, that's a great metaphor. So what is the actual state of the Greenland ice shelf, or ice, whatever you call it, and the shelf, the ice in Antarctica? Where are we? I saw a photo actually that kind of went viral maybe 2 weeks ago of one of the big ice sheets in Greenland that was blue instead of white, and indicating that this is like there's a massive amount of meltwater here, and we need to be concerned about this. Yeah, it was raining at the summit of Greenland a few weeks ago. We've never seen that before. It shouldn't be raining up there at the highest elevation, the sort of center of the Greenland ice sheet, one of the coldest parts of that ice sheet. And so that's a wake-up call that we are seeing melting at the surface of the Greenland ice sheet. Back in 2012, for the first time on record, the satellites were able to measure melting at the surface of the Greenland ice sheet over the entire ice sheet, all the way up to the summit in North Greenland. And what that means is that the process of melting is underway. It doesn't mean that the ice sheet has melted, but that we're starting to see the process of melting, which we call ablation, outpace what we call accumulation. There's been a long-term sort of balance when it comes to these ice sheets between the amount of snow that accumulates and the amount of melting at the periphery of the ice sheet. And that balance keeps the ice sheet in sort of a stable configuration. What we've done now is we've tipped the balance. There's more melting taking place. There isn't nearly enough accumulation to make up for that. And so we're measuring the loss of ice from the Greenland ice sheet. In fact, in July of 2 years ago, July, I believe it was 2019, in 1 month, in just that 1 month of July, there was enough melt from the Greenland ice sheet to raise global sea levels by a measurable amount, by a visually measurable amount, about a half a centimeter. If you were looking very carefully, you could actually see that rise. And that tells us that we are now seeing the beginning of that process of collapse of these ice sheets and decades ahead of schedule. The critics love to cite uncertainty, but the uncertainties have not broken in our favor. They've broken against us as we learn more, as we put more of these processes into the climate models, as we see what's happening in the real world. We are becoming aware that some of these impacts are indeed playing out faster than we predicted, and that's not good news.
Yeah, it's very much not good news. We are talking with Dr. Michael Mann, the Distinguished Professor of Meteorology and the Director of the Earth Systems Science Center at Penn State University, member of the National Academy of Sciences, recipient of the Tyler Prize, author of his new book, The New Climate War. MichaelMann.net with 2 N's. .net is his website. Michael E. Mann with 2 N's is his Twitter handle. We'll be back with Dr. Mann in just a moment. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Right back with Dr. Michael Mann right after this. And welcome back. So, Dr. Mann, we were talking about the ice sheets and raising the sea levels and things. And I know we've discussed this before, but I think it bears revisiting. That's not the only consequence. Rising sea levels, and for people like we live here in Portland, and most of Portland is probably not more than 30 or 40 feet above the Columbia River. And the Columbia River, just 100 miles down the road, hits the Pacific Ocean. If the oceans go up, the river goes up, I'm assuming, and we're in trouble. I mean, there's just all over the country, there's going to be people who are in trouble from that. But that rising sea level isn't the only consequence. There are also ocean currents that affect our weather patterns. Can you speak to that? I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Dr. Mann?
Hello?
There you go. There you are.
Okay. So, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, I think you framed this, adroitly here, because the fact that the Greenland ice sheet is losing ice sooner than we expected means there's more fresh water that's being dumped into the North Atlantic as that ice melts and flows into the North Atlantic Ocean. That fresh water is lighter than the salty waters that you typically find at those latitudes. And so that decreases the density of the waters at the surface. And that inhibits the sinking motion, which is driven by those dense, cold, salty waters. So you make the surface of the ocean there fresher. You inhibit the sinking motion that drives the so-called ocean conveyor, the Great Ocean Conveyor, this warm current that we sometimes equate with the Gulf Stream, but it's really a larger current that actually continues on north into the North Atlantic, heading towards Iceland, and warms parts of Europe, warms parts of Greenland, warms parts of eastern Canada, the coastal eastern Canada, maritime regions of North America. And so that current system plays a very important role in those regional climates. And if you collapse that current system, then you can have a pretty dramatic impact on those regional climates. Now, you won't get another ice age like the movie The Day After Tomorrow. That movie was a caricature of the science. But what you would do is decrease the mixing of ocean waters in the North Atlantic, which is one of our most productive regions in the world when it comes to biological productivity, when it comes to fish populations upon which we rely. For 25% of the world gets as its main source of protein, fish, and those fish populations would be negatively impacted in one of the most vital natural fisheries in the world. There's something else that comes into it, and it has to do with some pretty technical physics of how ocean currents work. But as that ocean current slows down or collapses, the sea level in the North Atlantic will actually change in response to that. And sea levels will come up along the east coast of the U.S., even more than we would expect. So you get extra sea level rise along the east coast of the U.S.
Yeah, another not good news. Capital N, capital G, capital N. Fascinating stuff. Professor Michael Mann is with us. We will be back. His latest book, by the way, The New Climate War. Check it out. We will be back with Dr. Mann in 60 seconds. I have to read an ad over on the commercial side. I'll be right back. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So Rand Paul is now echoing Louis Gohmert. Remember Louis Gohmert back in the day, after 9/11, when he was talking about terror babies. There's Muslims coming to the United States to have babies who will be citizens, and we can't kick them out anymore, and then they're going to grow up and they're going to be terrorists. Yeah, and we all kind of laughed at Louis Gohmert. So now Rand Paul is talking about how the Biden administration is taking kids from down at the border who may have it, COVID, and they're plucking them up and putting them all over the United States as if they're wishing to seed the country with a new variant. Right. But that's not half of it. Then he goes on to say that, for him, quote, the bottom line for those who are saying I won't go to a restaurant unless everybody's vaccinated, he says, mind your own business. Well, Rand, it is our business. Public health is all of our businesses. I've got a whole new rant about Rand Paul's bizarre take on the public good over at thomhartmann.com. It's a video. You can check it out there. We are talking with Dr. Michael Mann, the distinguished professor of meteorology and the director of the Earth System Science Center at Penn State University. His new book, The New Climate War. Dr. Mann, I wanted to talk to you about kids and despair. This troubles me, and I confess, I have been at various times rather hysterical about the climate emergency and oh my God, we could trigger the new Permian extinction and all this kind of stuff. And what's happening, it appears, is that as many as, this is the latest study, 56% of people between 16 and 25 years old are actually immobilized in some ways in their lives by fear of the climate future. And as a result, a lot of people are just saying, screw it. They're becoming climate nihilists. And, I'm not going to pretend, which is, of course, exactly what the fossil fuel companies want. We're past all the tipping points. There's nothing we can do. Speak to those folks, if you could, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's really important. It is one of the main points in my book, in The New Climate War, is the danger of defeatism and despair now that denial itself is on the way, because we can all see the impacts of climate change. So the fossil fuel interests, the polluters, know they can't get away with trying to convince us that climate change isn't happening. But they've turned to a whole new array of tactics in their effort to keep us from moving away from fossil fuels, moving toward renewable energy, clean energy. And so one of the tactics, in fact, is to sort of foment doom-mongering and despair-mongering, because if we truly believe it's too late to do anything about the problem, it potentially leads to disengagement, just the opposite of what we need. And it's understandable. We are we face this barrage of bad news in our news cycle today, much of it related to the damaging impacts of climate change these days with the devastating extreme weather events that we're seeing play out in real time. It's easy to be overwhelmed by that, and it's easy to fall victim to the sort of doom and despair and this idea that there's nothing we can do about the problem. But as you say, that plays right into the hands of the fossil fuel industry and the forces of inaction, the inactivists, as I call them in the book. And so what we need to do is to recognize that there's some people of goodwill, good intentions, good-hearted people who have fallen into despair, who have fallen victim to some misinformation and disinformation. For example, the claim that runaway warming is underway and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. There are, prominent players in the climate space that continue to try to convince people of that, and it feeds this sense that it's too late to prevent catastrophic warming of the planet. But the science tells us it's not. The science tells us there's huge urgency, and we've been talking about that. We can see why it's urgent that we act now and react dramatically, but there is agency. There is still time to prevent the worst impacts from playing out. And so when you encounter people, friends, family members who have fallen into despair, help them understand the reasons why it isn't too late. And you can follow me on Twitter, Michael E. Mann. I regularly post information here that I think would be helpful in those efforts to show people the way forward, to help them out of this abyss so that they're back on the front lines demanding action. That's where we need them.
Yeah. I think there was a point probably 20 years ago when a little bit of hysteria got attention and maybe caused people to say, okay, we need to do something, but too much of a good thing. Well, whatever. I'm torturing metaphors here. 2,100.
It's a challenge for all of us, Tom. It's a challenge for all of us to find that right balance between, indicating, conveying the urgency, but not implying that that we're beyond the point of no return, because we're not.
Yeah, there you go. 2,180 scientists around the world have signed on to this worldwide declaration demanding a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. What are your thoughts I think we have about 2.5 minutes here left. What are your thoughts about how we get out of this? Where are the low-hanging fruit? Where are the pressure points that we can, quickly make progress in moving in the right direction and start the process of maybe some of the longer-term, more difficult challenges as well?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I was proud to be the lead signatory on that letter, and I think it is time for politicians, for our elected representatives to act on our behalf rather than continuing to be enablers of the fossil fuel industry. We cannot allow any additional fossil fuel infrastructure. Even the conservative International Energy Agency a month ago or so came out and said, if we are to prevent catastrophic warming of the planet, more than 1 Celsius, 3 degree Fahrenheit warming of the planet, there can be no new fossil fuel infrastructure. And so it is time for us to demand that our politicians do not green light additional pipeline projects, do not continue to provide subsidies and other incentives to the fossil fuel industry, and instead provide those subsidies and incentives to renewable energy and put a price on carbon and block new fossil fuel infrastructure. These are all things that need to happen. We can't do them ourselves. We need our politicians to do it, and we need to elect politicians who will do it.
Amen. Dr. Michael Mann. Michael Mann with 2Ns.net is the website. You can tweet him and follow him at Michael E. Mann, M-A-N-N, on Twitter. And, of course, get his new book, The New Climate War. Dr. Mann, thank you so much for dropping by. It's great seeing you again.
Thank you, my friend.
Good talking with you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And now we can get back to a conversation about politics and the news of the day right after this break. Stick around. Today is... Today is such a great day to make a contribution to Free Speech TV. To call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org during this program and make a contribution, because today a group of frontline funders, these are folks who have the means and the willingness and God bless them, you know, the civic mindedness to get together and say, we're going to match people's donations. And today it's up to $10,000. Your gift up to $10,000 gets doubled today because of Suzanne in Virginia, Mark in Florida, John and Jean in Oregon, Dulaney in Missouri, Sonia and Gerhardt in Wisconsin, Deborah in California, and Robin in Vermont. And thank you to our frontline funders for this match, which means for all of us, if you make a contribution right now at 877-378-8669, call that number. Operators are standing by, as they say. Call that number and make your contribution. It will be doubled. And in addition to a one-time contribution that will be doubled, you can also make a long-term contribution. You could say, you know, I'd like to give $100 today, so that $200 will go to Free Speech TV. And also sign me up for $10 a month for the rest of the year or whatever. Now that doesn't get doubled. I'm not sure if the $10 this month would or not. I don't know how they do this, but probably. But I can't guarantee that. But you can add to that, right? You make the one-time donation and then also say, and by the way, let me become a sustaining member of Free Speech TV. Let me become part of that circle, that elite group of people who are on a monthly basis helping make sure that this network stays on the air and keeps these great programs on the air. I was listening to Stephanie Milley this morning, and she was saying, and help us stay on the air, please. That was brilliant. It's like, yeah, please. We all, you know, this is I think Free Speech TV is a good thing for America. I know it's a good thing for our mental health. I believe it is. We need to keep up. We need to keep informed. We need essentially a support group for each other. We need to keep each other strong and well, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, through these very difficult times. And my experience of Free Speech TV is that it is one of those places that does that. That most of the programs on Free Speech TV, when I watch them, I'm inspired. And I hope that I accomplish that in my program, too. I try not to raise issues without also finding solutions and talking about them. So anyhow, call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution with a $20 gift, which becomes $40 with the match from Suzanne and Mark and John and Jean and Delaney and Sonia and Gerhardt and Deborah and Robin. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV sticky sticker, bumper sticker, or the $20 clingy sticker, the clear sticker, the glass sticker. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV tote bag, available in 2 elegant designs. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug that only available from Free Speech TV and only available during the fund drives. And someday these things will be worth real money on eBay. Maybe $10, I don't know, 20, 30. Well, but maybe 100, maybe 2. Who knows? And seriously, I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I doubt they'll be worth a whole lot, but they're cool, right? Isn't that? I just think it's a great memento. $75, the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV branded notebook and pen, or the Free Speech TV socks. With a $120 gift, you can get my newest book, literally just out. It came out last week. It's called The Hidden History of American Healthcare: Why Sickness Bankrupts You and Makes Others Insanely Rich. And I think it's probably, along with the book on guns and the Second Amendment, it's probably the most straightforward, simple, easy to read, non-technical, as it were, of all my books. The Supreme Court book can get kind of wonky, but this one is just it's my masterpiece, and you'll get an autographed copy. Or you can get the the Free Speech TV T-shirt with a $120 gift. With the $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet where we all get together and hang out in a Zoom room, and I'll answer any question you may have and listen to whatever you have to say. With the $360 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University gift box. That's socks, bumpers, the Free Speech TV socks, the bumper sticker, The Hidden History of Healthcare, autographed by its author, this guy Hartmann, and the Free Speech TV mug, and of course the Free Speech TV hat. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come. You will reserve your space in line to come hang out with me and Sean and Nate and Joyce here in the studio and Louise, and see how we do the show. I'm telling you, it's kind of humble digs, but we do a lot with a little, and we're having a fine time doing it. I look forward to seeing you. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your contribution will be doubled. Call now. Thank you. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hey, we have a new video out about the 1776 Commission. Remember this commission that Donald Trump put together to explain the history of America, to have true principles? Because history is being distorted by things like the New York Times 1619 report, you know. No, seriously, this is what Donald Trump said, that, you know, we're engaging now in revisionist history by highlighting the history of slavery in the United States. And so he put together this bizarre commission, and now in the state of South Carolina, Senator Dwight Loftus and others have introduced legislation requiring that Trump's commission, which had no historians on it, 18 people, not a single historian, that commission's findings be taught as history in the public schools in South Carolina. It's absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, it's like they want to take us back to the 1930s. Check it out at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and I'm going to pick up your calls in just a second. Just wanted to bring you up to date. President Biden just gave a speech, I believe from the White House, in which he said, he just laid it right out. He said that the top 1% in America evaded $160 billion in income taxes last year, and they did it because, in part, because we don't have enforcement with the IRS, and in part because there's all these huge loopholes in our tax law. You know, it's in fact one of the biggest ones. I'll tell you, one of the biggest ones is it's called stepped basis, I believe. I think I have the first word wrong, but the way it works is, say you bought some stock that was, you know, you bought $1,000 worth of stock in Apple when they were first starting out, or in some new company. Let's just say you just bought into a new company. And, you know, 5-10 years from now, that $1,000 worth of stock becomes worth $1 million. Well, if you sold it, you would pay income taxes on that capital gain of $999,990 or $900, whatever. You do the math, but you get my point. You'd pay capital gains on it. But if instead you put it in your estate and you will it to your son, and then you die and your son gets that money, your son pays no taxes on the estate tax, because we're not talking, you know, huge quantities of money here. And the new basis becomes whatever the inheritance was. So that tax just literally never gets paid. And this is one of the loopholes, particularly the older hedge fund guys and whatnot are using to hide money, to shelter money from the tax man. And, you know, there's a bunch of them. David Sirota actually goes into this at some length in his newsletter, the Daily Poster today. It's worth checking out. So, anyhow, all that said, let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Gary in Alpharetta. Hey, Gary, Alpharetta, Georgia. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind?
Hello, Thom Hartmann. Thank you.
Sure. Greed has no heart, Gary.
Greed has no heart.
You always used to say it to me. Now I say it to you.
I know. Thank you. And at the bottom of the book that you're going to write, I predict, I still think you would be the one. I would only want you to write it. Of course, with me throwing a few little ideas. And at the bottom of the book, and I'll get off this in a second, the bottom of the book, America's core challenge or America's great challenge. It is. It is our challenge.
Yeah.
You've been talking, correct me if I'm wrong, now I'm getting a little emotional. Tomorrow's a special day. You know what tomorrow is?
No.
Constitution Day.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, and it's a very personal day for me also.
Because?
Well, I'll be 76.
Oh, hey, happy birthday, Gary. Good on you.
All right, thank you. I'm trying to say it modestly, but thank you.
So what'd you call about?
Day. Yeah, well, I'm calling about what you're really talking about on and on basically, and I agree with it. It all comes down to why are we going through this in America? We're going through this because of that word, greed. We have to change our campaign laws, money laws, financing campaigns. We have to take another look at ourselves as who we are, what we want. And here's the key right now, correct me if I'm wrong. Because to me, it always comes back to money, greed, and ego with people. I'm sorry. Here's what we have to do first. It isn't that complicated, Tom, and I'm a little emotional today about it. It's not that complicated to me what we need to fix right away. We have to break the back of this momentum of this cult that was developed under Republicans for years, but especially Trump later. We got to break the back of that cult, or we can't go forward.
Yeah. What you're talking about, I think, is oligarchy, rule by the rich, and that is what America has slid into as a consequence of 40 years of the Reagan Revolution and neoliberalism. That's
the core challenge of America.
Yeah.
Not turn our country into an oligarchy because we don't function. We're not going to function well.
Yeah, that's why my last book was The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. I'm completely, and the next book, the one I'm writing right now, is about neoliberalism, which is the mechanism by which oligarchy became oligarchy.
Right, I need to get that book.
I have to write it first.
Well, I need to get that book right. Denmark has 5.8 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to add that. I looked it up.
Yeah.
We're wondering how many? 5.8 million.
Yeah. But apparently their proportion of white people is about, well, maybe it's a little larger than the United States. But anyhow, Gary, thank you. Thank you. It's nice to hear from you. I appreciate the call. Russ in Pacifica, California. Hey, Russ, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I really love the show. Been listening for at least 5 years now.
Thank you.
Great program. One thing that's been on my mind is that I do see a lot of public figures, like especially a lot of celebrities with very strong progressive liberal views out there. And it got me thinking, how much does it cost to buy a politician? And I just looked up this article that estimated that I think it was Tom DeSantis or Marco Rubio, one of them received around $3 million from the NRA. And then I'm looking at Robert Downey Jr. Making around $75 million off of Iron Man 3 or since Iron Man 3, and we have Leonardo DiCaprio. He's around $25 million for Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, $3 million to these huge celebrities that seem to be really active and kind of pushing the right narrative and everything. But I'd kind of like to see them put their money where their mouth is, because I don't think $3 million is going to hit them as hard as somebody like you or me. But I think they can afford it, and I'd like to see them actually do it.
Well, I can tell you, I know that a number of people in Hollywood are very politically active, and they do use a lot of their money for political causes. They tend not to do it very publicly. Barbara Streisand did that back in the day, was publicly giving money to Democrats, and it turned her into the goat, the target of the firing squad of the right for years. I mean, they used to trash Barbara Streisand. So people are doing it, with a little lower profile. But I think the larger problem and the larger issue that you raised, Russ, is that it's not that expensive to buy a politician in most parts of the United States, particularly a state or local politician. And it's not that expensive to influence a race. And by the standards of very wealthy people. It is expensive by the standards of middle-class people like you and me, but it is a real challenge. It's not a real challenge for somebody who's worth hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. And that needs to be changed. It should be very difficult to buy a politician in America. We made it difficult in 1974 and 75. We passed some really significant reform legislation. A lot of it came out of the Church Commission investigations into the Nixon bribery scandals. And the Supreme Court knocked them down and said, no, corporations are people, and money is not money, it's free speech. And that's protected by the First Amendment. So the First Amendment protects the right of billionaires to own politicians and own the political process, which was just an absolutely wrong decision. It was wrong with Citizens United in 2010. It was wrong with McCutcheon in 2013. It is still wrong, and it is the major thing that is corrupting the United States. It's why, when I wrote a book about the Supreme Court, it was titled The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. This was their major betrayal. I mean, there have been thousands or hundreds of minor betrayals, but their major betrayal was these two things, of establishing corporate personhood and that money is speech. Those have turned us from, as Gary and I were just talking about, from a democracy into an oligarchy. And we have to reverse those. We can do it legislatively. We can do it by changing the composition of the Supreme Court. I mean, there's a bunch of mechanisms to do that, but that is the challenge of our day, Russ. It is the single biggest issue we are all facing. And so spot on, and thanks for bringing it up. I mean, you made a very, very good point there. But, hoping that rich people are going to save us is not the solution. The solution is fixing our democracy. And I think we do that, by spreading the word. We do that through populism.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Specifically through progressive populism. I was having a conversation with Congressman Khanna about this just last weekend. Anyhow, we'll be back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Joanne in Seattle, listening on KBCS. Hey, Joanne, what's on your mind?
Hi, Thom Hartmann. Listening to you for a bazillion years.
Thank you.
Tried to get to you while you still had Professor Mann on. I have been wanting to get in touch with him, and I'm not on the Internet, to let him know that it would be a good idea. Why doesn't he get together with others of his peers who are concerned about our climate change and organize or suggest organizing citizen groups all around the country to do what they can on a local level to address climate change locally, to do whatever they can think of. It would start hundreds of little community groups that would be putting their minds and then their efforts to this.
That is largely, Joanne, what kind of started in the 80s and 90s as climate change was starting to become a thing and people were starting to wake up to it. That, along with things like recycling, I mean, just basically the whole idea of having a lighter footprint on the earth, not just a carbon footprint, but an overall footprint. And what we've learned from that experience is that it can be satisfying, it can be gratifying, it makes you feel good to feel like you're saving a little bit of the planet. And it does have a small impact, but the impact, even if everybody in the country just like religiously recycled, for example, or, planted another tree in their backyard, it's not even a 1% impact overall when you compare it with these massive subsidies, $600 billion a year subsidy to the fossil fuel industry, the billions of tons of carbon dioxide that are being burned by industry, the extent to which our transportation systems are powered by fossil fuels, the extent to which our agricultural systems are powered by fossil fuels. These things can change, but they're not going to change because you and I change our habits. We can eat organic and maybe that'll save a little bit, but there's some small things we can do. But the big stuff, it really requires governmental action. It really requires a change in the rules of the game, essentially. We're talking about making the the game of business and and of governance climate friendly. And that involves the things that Michael Mann was talking about, things like, putting a carbon tax, putting a tax on carbon, and doing it in a way that doesn't hurt people, cycling some of that revenue back to, low-income and middle-class people to compensate for the expenses they're making the transition to electricity, rebuilding our power systems, putting solar panels on everybody's rooftops, localizing power generation, taking power generation back to local communities and getting it out of the hands of giant fossil fuel corporations. And there's all these steps, but they require political will. And that's why his final call for action essentially was, elect politicians who are going to do the right thing. Because that's the lever, to use Archimedes' metaphor, that's the lever that we can use to move the earth, and is political. And that's why I'm talking about this every day. Go ahead. I do
understand. I'm sure that Professor Mann understands as well. But I also think that things change over time. I think that we're at a different point, and that it might be worth it to see that demonstrated actually on the ground, the number of people working on the ground.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's why we need more incentives for people to put rooftop solar up and community power and things like that. Yeah, well, and like I said, it's it feels great to do these things, and I'm not denigrating that in any way. I think that furthers the movement. Joanne, thank you. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So there's a new study that this is not peer-reviewed, but it is in preprint. It is being peer-reviewed as we speak, where the scientists were looking at the ability of the COVID virus to jump from the human species. It started with bats, and then it apparently went to pangolins and then to humans. To jump from humans to other species, which would be a big problem. If we can infect other mammals, our cats and dogs, if we can infect rats or mice, who have traditionally been disease vectors for all kinds of things, from the bubonic plague to hantavirus, if we can infect them with this virus, we've got a whole brand new problem. And sure enough, they have found that these two variants, B351 and P1, both can infect mice in the laboratory. And they say this abrogation of the species barrier represents a serious problem. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Don in Sheridan, Iowa. Hey, Don, what's on your mind today?
Well, hi, Tom, and I'd like to tell you, Joyce is a godsend, isn't she?
She is. She's wonderful.
Did you catch Lawrence O'Donnell last night?
I didn't. I typically stop watching TV around 7 Pacific time, which is after Rachel's over. So
we have a breath of fresh air, Tom. The governor of New York is a female Thom Hartmann, and I was screaming and yelling when I had her on there.
She's a genuine progressive?
She is a genuine. She believes in science. She believes in democracy. She is getting out his money as fast as she can to the people that need the money to not be kicked out of their residence.
Right.
She is going to work for the people. And who is she? I said, where did this? And she came from. She's one of us.
Yeah. That's great news, Don. I mean, the Democratic machine over the years in New York has gotten fat and happy and in many ways very, very corrupt, and in bed with the Republicans to a large extent in the state politics. And I would love to see the damn thing shaken up.
And also, I'd like to say something about Stephanie, was that her name? The Republican. She didn't know. She looked almost like a fool. But you got to remember, they know they're going to look that way in your program. But she says to herself, to her constituents, I got enough courage to come on there. I'll take his crap. And I know that's
Don, I just lost you.
about your gal, your Republican gal.
And you know that
she gave no argument in defense of her, but I know that she goes, I've got enough guts to go on and talk to Thom Hartmann.
Well, she does. God bless her.
Yeah.
I respect her for that.
I know. I'm just saying she knew she had no argument. But, so I'm just wanting us to, that she had a chance to make her case, and there was no case.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, but, she's not here to defend herself, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I understand all that, but she was there to defend herself, and you did not get on her. You were very polite, very cordial.
Well, I find that that's probably the best way to debate conservatives is to try to keep it not to personalize it and not to brutalize it, but just to keep it to the issues. Don, I got to move along. But thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you, Victor in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Victor, what's on your mind today?
I think you're doing a great job, Tom, and I think the big problem is Trump populism in the South. Well, the blue states are pretty well blue. The problem is that when you really need to get Democrats running in the South to challenge these governors down there, and if they just be honest and truthful, and we get some strong candidates down there, I think we have a chance to turn the South blue.
I think so too.
Need more than anything.
I think that's Stacey Abrams. If Brian Kemp had not successfully purged over 100,000 people from the voting rolls in Georgia just before the election so he could beat her by 50,000 votes, I'm of the opinion that she would be the governor of Georgia right now, and Georgia would be in the process of flipping itself blue. And I think they're moving in that direction, and that's why you've got all these Republican states passing these naked, not just voter suppression, but literally giving them the power to overturn elections, to reject votes, to reject elections. Which is just mind-boggling. I think it's the greatest statement of the fact that they just don't believe in they don't believe in their own BS anymore, and they know they know nobody else does either.
No, that's the truth. Nobody else does. I even think the base is beginning to waver.
Yeah, I'm with you, Victor. Thank you for the call. Kate in Seattle. Hey, Kate, what's on your mind?
Hi, listen, I got to disagree with you in an enlightening fashion, and that is there are many, many local groups of local little people like me who are organized to put pressure on city government, on state government, on national government to enact policies that affect how we transport ourselves, how we build our buildings, how we construct our agriculture, how we monitor our water systems and our forests, how we promote our urban forests, and all of these things impact our carbon footprint in a positive way, and you need to become aware of these groups and maybe have some representatives from them to talk to. And a lot of this even started in Portland.
Yeah.
Portland has the whole organization going.
You're right.
I would encourage groups to form at a local level.
You're absolutely right, Kate. You're absolutely right. And if I just glibly dismissed the woman who called earlier and said, why aren't we building these local groups by flipping it to national politics, I was wrong. You're absolutely right, Kate. And there are some very, very effective groups all over the country who are doing this work, particularly here in Portland.
Good, and I hope you would promote that concept along with the national and international work that has to happen.
But the point that I thought I was trying to make, and obviously it came across wrong, was that it's political action rather than personal action that's going to save the world. And what you're saying is that these are political groups. It's not just a bunch of people getting together to recycle cans. They're getting together to push local politicians and change local policy.
Exactly.
And that was the point that that was the point I was trying to make, and I obviously blew it. Kate, thank you very much. Thanks for setting me straight and our listeners as well. I appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you. Yes, you. That's the demos in democracy. So get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe and be good to yourself and people around you. We'll see you tomorrow.
been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. Wild Alaskan Company, delicious, sustainably sourced seafood delivered right to your door. More information at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. And Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics. More info at mackweldon.com/Tom.
We say fight back!